Welcome back, everyone. Hope you are doing fabulous today so far. Let's go ahead and talk about how to perform the calculations for these 5 problems and report the final answer with the proper number of significant figures and rounding. So we need to remember the rules that we talked about in the previous 2 videos to answer these 5 questions correctly. So hopefully by now you have tried these 5 on your own. And with that said, let's go ahead and talk about how to do these 5 problems and give the correct answer. So for the first problem, we have 3 numbers that need to be added. So when putting those 3 numbers in your calculator, just as they come out, you should get 1329.749. You should get this answer. But this is not the answer that you should report because it does not have the correct number of significant figures with regards to the rules for addition. So if you remember, for addition and subtraction, we care about number of significant figures after the decimal, and we use the number that has the smallest number of sig figs after the decimal. So this first number, it has a total of 6 significant figures, but this number just has 3 after the decimal, 3 significant figures. Both 78.32 and 690.54, both of these have a total of 2 significant figures after the decimal. So that means that our final answer can only have 2 significant figures after the decimal. So this is what comes out of our calculator. What comes out of our calculator has 3 after the decimal. We have to round it to 2. So that means I'm going to have the 7 and the 4, but I need to look next door to see if I round or not. I look at the number that is next to the last significant figure in that measurement. It is 5. It is greater than 5. It's 9, so that means I'm going to round up that number that's next to it that is significant. So the final answer for question A would be 1329.75. So remember, for addition and subtraction, we care about number of sig figs after the decimal. We need to remember that rule and also the multiplication and division rule when doing B. So with B, you see we have a mixed operation equation. So just like we did with the example in the previous video, we need to do what's in parentheses first. So in your calculator, when you compute what's in parentheses, you get 59. And remember, for subtraction, we care about number of sig figs after the decimal. Neither of these have any number after the decimal. So what we do in our calculator, what we get out is exactly the same number of sig figs that we need, 59. We need to remember that because now we need to go ahead and multiply, do the rest of the equation. We need to multiply that intermediate step by 49. And when we multiply those two numbers, what comes out of our calculator should be 2891. But again, that's not going to be our final answer because we need to remember the rules for significant figures. And since our final operation was multiplication, we need to remember the rules for multiplication, which is that our final answer should only have the same number of sig figs as our fewest significant number. We don't care about if the digits are before or after the decimal point. So 49 has 2 significant figures. 59, that has 2 significant figures. So my final answer for this question, B, should only have 2 significant figures. Right now, as it is written, it has 4. So I need to round this answer to 2 sig figs. So that means I'm going to keep the 2 and the 8, and then I need to look at that next door digit to decide if I round or not. It is greater than 5, so when I round, I need to round my 8 up to a 9, but I'm not just going to say 29. I'm going to round it to 2900. So this answer, if you remember our rules for significant figures, those 2 zeros are not significant, right? There's no decimal point. So I can write my final answer as 2,900 because that just has 2 sig figs, which is what I need for the problem. Or I would also accept 2.9 times 10 to the 3. Both of these numbers are exactly the same number and they both have 2 significant figures. I just took this answer and put it in scientific notation by moving that decimal point over 3. So the answer for B is 2,900 or 2.9 times 10 to the 3. Question C. We're just going to add again, so the C is very similar to A. So putting those numbers in your calculator, you should get this answer out. But is that 0.9 significant? Nope. Based upon the rules for addition, I don't care about number of sig figs after the decimal. Both 4503 and 550, they don't have any digits after a decimal. They don't have a decimal. So my final answer can't have anything after the decimal. So I'm going to look at that last digit that's not significant to see if I need to round up. And I do round up because it's greater than 5. So my final answer is 5088. That's for question C. Question D. Question D is similar to B in the fact that another mixed operation problem, but we're first going to multiply. So we're going to multiply 0.56 by 11.73. When we do that, what comes out of your calculator should be 6.5688. And I've underlined the 688 to remind myself that those 3 numbers are not significant. Why are they not significant? They're not significant based upon the rules for multiplication, what was done inside the parentheses. Multiplication, you care about number of sig figs total. 0.56 has 2 sig figs total. 11.73 has 4 total significant figures. So my final answer for what's in parentheses should only have 2 significant figures. So in this case, the 6 and the 5. But I'm not going to round. I'm not going to drop the 688. I'm not going to round until the very end of the problem, which is after I add the 22.34. I'm not going to drop the 688. It's going to come along for the ride, but I need to remember that those 3 digits are not significant when I give my final answer. Because when I add these 2 numbers now, I need to remember the rule for sig figs for addition, which is I care about the significant figures after the decimal point. 22.34 has a total of 2 sig figs after the decimal. How many does what's in parentheses have? It only has 1 sig fig after the decimal. The 688 is not significant based upon the multiplication rule. And that's important to remember because now when I add these 2 numbers, this is what comes out of my calculator, but my final answer, due to the rules for addition, should only have 1 significant figure. So my final answer for D is 29.8. Last but not least, division. Division rule, same as the multiplication rule. I care about total number of sig figs for my final answer. So your final answer for that should be 2.9. So I would say if you could do problems like this, particularly B and D, since those are mixed operation problems, those are probably the most challenging. If you can do problems like this successfully, you should have no trouble with the quiz and exam that covers significant figures and rounding with mixed operation examples.